This is the Nancy Stevens Lifestyle Show here on the New Horizon Radio.
Welcome to the Nancy Stevens Lifestyle Show here on the New Horizon Radio. Few people have witnessed as much change in the hairdressing industry as my guest, Debbie Digby. Having spent almost 50 years in the profession, she has travelled around the world, encountering remarkable people, ideas and opportunities. Business owner, educator, mentor and author, Debbie is passionate about lifelong learning, meaningful relationships and the power of organic networking. She's the author of Forewarned is Forearmed and is currently writing her next book, drawing on a lifetime of experiences, lessons and observations from both business and life. It's lovely to have you on the show.
Well, thank you, Nancy. It's lovely to be here. This is a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with you today.
You've packed so much in. I mean, nearly 50 years in hairdressing. I mean, what have been the biggest challenges you've witnessed, and kind of what are the, I know you're super principled, but what principles have remained constant for you?
So consistency is one of them. Being disciplined and really being true to your values, sticking to do what you say, and make some decisions about what it is that you want to do and achieve and stick to them. Even in the hardest, what I've found is that the biggest obstacles, if you just keep your eye on the prize, you'll always find a way.
It's really hard, though, I think, when you're running a business sometimes, is not to go down all sorts of rabbit holes and get distracted. Because, I mean, I know sort of running a business second time around, it's very different to when I ran a business 20 years ago in terms of social media is just everywhere. And it's very easy to sort of compare and contrast, try and compare yourself to other people. How do you turn off the noise of all that other stuff that's going on?
I love the phrase, the noise. I really do, because you're quite right. There is so much information coming at us on a daily basis, and I find the most valuable thing that I do is in the morning I rise early and I just write those bullet points of the things that I have to do that day. Then I look at the list of things to do, the one which is the least palatable. I call it Eat That Frog after a book that I read, and I deal with that one first. I think that's really important. I think if you don't have a plan starting at the beginning of the day, your time can just get eaten up with all of the distractions that are around. And one of the things I find right now, I love networking, but I find right now there is a lot of networking going on. But there's a lot of talk and not a lot of action. So I've recently made a little promise to myself to push through the noise to the action. Where is the action? What's the pointy bit? Where is the result going to be achieved?
Absolutely. And I think, you do talk about, you really do champion organic networking. I mean, why do you think genuine relationships are more powerful than the transactional networking? You and I know that, but for people who are maybe just starting out in business, there is so much networking, and it's like, how do you narrow it down to the meaningful stuff? Because a lot of it is, what can you do for me? And I know your ethos is very much not that.
Yeah, so I think if you like, the speed of networking has increased because so many people are working independently, and I think that's great. But what it means is, whereas back in the day in business, you might have gone to an event and there'd have been a few businesses who represent lots of employees, today what you have is a lot of independents who are trying to find, their correct networks. So it's I love to help people, and I think that's how I've come to this realization myself, is I can't help everybody. So what I need to do is really find the people who are looking to achieve the same things that I do, and where we're going to get some action at the end of it, because otherwise you find yourself constantly attending events, having conversations, joining webinars, but at the end of the day, we've all got to eat. We've all got to be successful. So it is about really being able to find your people. Now, but I do want to really stress the importance of networking, because there's only so much you can do alone. You need other people to help you. And I think one of the principles that I would like to really shine a light on right now is one of my mentors taught me a long time ago: never give up the opportunity to speak in public. And hence why I'm here today. And I think that that principle helps you find your way to the right places.
Absolutely. And coming up, we're going to be talking about your book, Forewarned is Forearmed, captures lessons from a lifetime in business and life. Kind of what inspired and what do you hope readers gain from it? And you're writing a new book. What's that all about?
Okay, so my book, Forewarned is Forearmed, was really a book that I wrote for hairdressers to raise the standards of hairdressing and to help hairdressers put into place some procedures so they could keep people safe. At the end of the day, hairdressers are creative people. It's what we love to do. We love to make people look good and feel good. But when we are working with chemicals, there's that other side to it. So my book really came as a result of what I was observing in the industry, how I could help hairdressers run safer businesses that allowed them to be creative whilst keeping their clients safe.
And I think you're so right there, because I think when we sort of had a chat the other week, there's not so much now, but there does still seem some unscrupulous business owners who are out for a quick buck, and who will just say, oh, I can do X, Y, and Z. We don't need to patch test. And there's a reason, unless you are in the industry or I've had my eyelashes and my hair tinted and my eyebrows tinted for many years, and I understand the importance of having a patch test, but some people just say, oh, my regular ladies let me down, will you just quickly do it? And anybody with any sort of moral code or ethics would say, absolutely not, you need to do a patch test. And there's a reason for that, because people can actually die. It's serious, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really serious. Often, I will hear people say, I've been colouring my hair for years and it's been okay, I don't need to patch test. One of the problems is that often these allergies to hair colour and other ingredients come as a surprise. So it's not necessarily something you're born with, it's something that you develop, and there can be absolutely no indicators for this kind of sudden sensitivity and reaction to hair colour. What's interesting is that if it's properly managed, then it can be avoided, and even if people start to become sensitive, if we pick that up early, we can continue creatively looking after their hair whilst simultaneously keeping people safe. We don't want people to end up in a situation where hair is such an expression of who we are. We don't want people to not have the freedom to be who they want to be and look how they want to look. So yeah, the book it's been surprisingly more influential than I thought it would be. When I was writing it, I did wonder, how many hairdressers will actually read this? But I wrote the book a good 8 years ago, and still today I'm selling copies, and hairdressers write to me all the time and say, wow, your book has changed my career and really helped me. So it's a real triumph for me. I'm really proud of it.
A real blueprint, though. And what's your new book about? Are you allowed to say?
Yeah, well, so my new book, 50 Years in Hairdressing next year. And so my new book is called My Wish for You. And it's going to be 50 tips, tricks, titillations, stories, things to really inspire young people to have a career that is what I wish for people is that they have a career that's been as fulfilling as mine, as successful as mine. I've loved every minute of it. It's just been such a great journey, and I really want to inspire young people and in a fun way give them some of the principles of that discipline that you need and that consistency you need in order to be successful.
I've never met you till today, but your energy is so present, and you just exude positivity. And I think the fact that you love giving more than taking is kind of your mantra. And I'm very much like that as well. But how does that work in business? Because sometimes you can feel like you're giving, and people are just taking. And you think, sometimes think, well, what am I actually getting from this? How does that work for you?
So couple of things come to mind, Nancy. Years ago, one of my mentors told me that success unshared is failure. And it's a great principle of mine. I have been very blessed with a successful career, surrounded by fabulous people. Whenever I've needed something in my life, the universe has had a habit of bringing it to me. And so these are principles that I live every day. And there are times when, sometimes I think I do love giving, and, there are times where you think, right, where's the line here? But another principle of my life that I was taught many years ago, if you always do more than you're paid, you'll always get more than you're worth. And I've found that to be true. So many times I've given my time freely, or I've done things for people, and I seem to have always reaped the rewards of those good deeds, if you like. So, and it's just nice to do. It's a funny old world right now. I call it the wonky world. And in the wonky world, I just love being the change that I want to see in the world. I love being nice. I like people treating me nice. And I just find the more I give, the more seems to come back.
And that's such a lovely mantra for everything that we do, because I think, as you say, we are living in a wonky world. I mean, that's a great description. Things are crazy, everything feels out of kilter, and to have that lovely mentality to and that kindness shared with others, as I say, you get it back tenfold. And it does, sometimes it does feel like you are giving, and you don't get anything back. But I think if you genuinely go in with an open heart and mind, and I say it particularly to my personal styling clients, and they come in and they're quite closed about maybe trying something new. And I would say, just have an open heart and mind, try something new. What's the worst thing that can happen? You try something on, you don't like it. It's okay, but until you do, you're not going to know. And it's about kind of pushing those boundaries and opening yourself out to and up to opportunities, because if you don't and you remain closed, nothing's going to come. And the universe knows that. I mean, just a brief example. I was feeling really, really low last week. Just, things were tough, and is it very easy to end up going to your own pity party and thinking, oh, woe is me, and life's really tough, and just feeling very, a bit introspective. And I went to a women's kind of circle last week, and it was all about manifestation and just being with these positive women, just that little switch. And I needed that. I needed to be that community, in that community, because when you run your own business, sometimes you can feel quite lonely and isolated, and to just be with like-minded women, to just talk. And by the end of it, I came out, I was smiling. We all made like flower garlands for our hair, and just the act of creativity and being together, where we weren't talking about what can you do for me, we're just sharing our stories, was so warming. And I think that's what you're all about as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think energy is contagious, and that story is I'm smiling as you're telling it, because I have my own women's groups, and going into those environments, it feeds you that energy, as it were. And they say you're the average of the people that you hang with. So I think choosing to be around like-minded people is really important, and it's hard sometimes. If you are somebody who loves people, and I love people, sometimes it's hard when you identify that a person's not really giving you what you need out of the relationship. It's hard to distance yourself, but it's really important. We talk about self-love and putting ourselves first, and having the ability to surround yourself with the right people and really turn away from those that are not serving you. It's hard, but it's necessary.
Oh, absolutely. I could not agree with you more. And I mean, Debbie, you've experienced nearly 50 years in hairdressing, which is a phenomenal achievement. Talk about how it all started, kind of the then and the now, because you must have seen huge changes.
I have indeed. When I was a young hairdresser, Nancy, a beautiful young woman met a prince and they got engaged. That was Lady Diana Spencer, got engaged to Prince Charles, and she had a short haircut with blonde highlights. And for months and months and months after that, everybody wanted that
Lady
one
Di.
haircut, that one set of highlights, and that's what we did, right? We did that Lady Di. And then not so long after that, you might remember Friends with the Rachel cut. So back then, 50 years ago, hairdressing and style was fairly simple, and fashion kind of changed with seasons and looks, but it was fairly much quite simple. Everybody wanted one kind of look, if you like. Now today, it's not like that. Anything goes. Particularly, let's look at hair, right? Hair extensions, different hair colours, long hair, short hair. You can wear your hair any way you like: pink, orange, green, or natural. Of course, grey blending is the latest thing for women of a certain age. So what we have today is a really complex industry, whereas back then, 50 years ago, it was fairly simple. Colouring hair, you learned how to highlight, you were off.
Or you had a perm.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
A bad perm.
Yeah, and that's why we see today, in hairdressing, we see a lot of specialisation. So we'll see people who specialise in balayage, specialise in hair extensions, because there is so much choice. And I think that's relatable in so many things, isn't it? Life was way more simple back then. Today it's more complex. We spoke earlier about how there is so many messages coming at us every day. So it's more complex today, more difficult, definitely more training to be had. It's one of the things that really makes me passionate about young people. I want to help them. I think that the world is quite difficult to navigate today, and however I can help young people find their way and just have a happy and successful career, that really means a lot to me.
It's interesting that you say that about, life was simpler in every aspect. And as you say, again, from a fashionista perspective, things were easier then. We didn't have social media. So, you got your inspiration from magazines, or, Princess Diana or Lady Diana was such a huge influence on the fashion industry. But in some ways, I feel fashion was more interesting then, because, the 80s were very much, easily identifiable. Now you look back, you watch Rivals and Disney, and everybody's got the big shoulder pads and the Lady Di, ruffle collar, or the pussy bow blouse, and bigger and better, and the bright colours. And then obviously you had I think the 80s was quite interesting. That was time for me. That was when I was sort of in my teens. But you think about the 70s and sort of glam rock, and the 60s, the advent of the mini, and then the 50s rock and roll. But don't you think that, I know things have got more complicated, but don't you think things are less interesting now? Because I don't know whether we will look back at this year or this decade and go, that was very much the hair of then. Whereas I think when we can look back at those decades, we can say that was the 80s, that was the 90s. Does that make sense?
One of the things I think, Nancy, I have a teenage granddaughter, and of course in your teenage years you're trying to find your identity, and in many respects I think because there's so much choice, it almost makes it a little bit difficult. When I was a teenager, you were, it was back then we had the mods and the rockers and the skinheads and the punk rock and the new romantics. And so in many respects, you found your identity within those genres. Today, I think it's quite difficult for young people, almost too much choice, and they talk about influencers, but it's too many different types of influence, if you like. And again, back to what we have said a couple of times, almost too much information. There's a lot of information and very little wisdom That's my observation.
Oh my God, that is so true. Yeah, so much information and not enough wisdom, and not necessarily coming from people who know what they're talking about. Anybody can be an influencer these days, and some people call me that, and it just makes me cringe, because I think that's not what I'm here to. I'm here because I do what I do because I'm passionate about it. I'm not here to influence or tell anybody what to do. Like you, I want to advise, guide, facilitate, but I am in no way, stretch the imagination, wanting to influence someone. I just think the term is being bandied around so much. But talking of influence and social media, how do we find you on the socials?
You can find me on Facebook or Instagram, Debbie Digby Smith. And you can also find my business, Passion for Hair, and we also have Salon Love, both on Facebook and Instagram. If people reach out, I love to connect.
Oh, honestly, Debbie, you are when I had Carly on a few weeks ago, again, that beacon of light, a shining example of just a really kind person, and wanting to just share and give and share the love. And I know that sounds cliche, but you really do exude that, and you're practicing what you're preaching. And honestly, it's been such an absolute pleasure to meet you. I'm and I think anybody who's lucky to have been mentored by you is so very, very fortunate. So thank you for everything you've done for hairdressing, and thank you for being such an amazing guest.
Oh, thank you, Nancy. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, it's been amazing. And as I say, thank you for being such a great guest. And the next few shows, I'm going to be talking theatre, movie, books, fashion, and some very exciting news where I am sworn to secrecy. Keep your eyes peeled on my socials for more. I'm Nancy Stevens. This is the Nancy Stevens Lifestyle Show, and wishing you an amazing week.